You're listening to the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. It's fast, fun, free, daily deep dive Bible, and right now we're working on the book of Nehemiah. If you're new, welcome. You can jump in right here, or you can always go back and start at the beginning of any season. The whole podcast is available in an easy-to-use format at thetmbh.com.
I think you got to commemorate stuff. I did not appreciate that enough when I was younger. I don't know, there's sort of a sense that I had of, well, yeah, whatever, this is just right now. Important things happened long ago. Important things will happen in the future. But I think I had a little bit of a disdain for right now, maybe? Does that sound weird? I think it's true. And I wasn't great at commemorating things when I was younger. But somewhere in the last few years, I've become a commemorator. I've started to realize these things aren't going to happen for me forever. This little event with my kid, that's a big deal. It should not be minimized just because they're a kid. It's a big deal because we're only here for so long, doing life like this for so long. The things we commemorate tend to be things that really are life markers. And I've become less flippant about that. I've found that it's very important for me at the end of a work week or the end of a work month, which is sort of the basic cycle of time for what I do. And I've found that if I don't do something to stop and celebrate, even if it's little, just go out and have a bite to eat with my wife or my friends, light a fire in my little solo stove in the backyard and sit and look at wood crackling and burning and stop and appreciate that I have been given this week or this month, and that hopefully I did something productive and redemptive with it that helped other people and that provided for my family. If I don't stop to dwell on that and to share the celebration of that with my friends and to simultaneously celebrate the wins and commemorate the things in their life, if I don't do that, something feels off. I think we are supposed to be commemorators. The Bible holds out God as being commemorative. Remember that stuff we were just looking at in Joshua the other day, putting up rocks and stones and making a marker of this or that. I think it is how we're wired. I think it is important as the commemorative impulse is there for a reason. But I also think we are very practical and very hustle-driven in the moment in which we live in life, and being commemorative feels sometimes impractical. Like I said, I am thinking that commemoration is more and more important all the time. We've talked a lot about this September 27th, 444 BC covenant renewal thing that is happening in Jerusalem that's recorded in Nehemiah chapter 8. And obviously, one element of all of that is just exactly, it's what we've been calling it, the covenant renewal thing. The people are finally getting eyes to see and ears to hear, and they're realizing what they've got wrong for so long, and they're starting to think about things differently, and they want to hear what the book of the law says. They want to understand the character of God, and when they do, it's so moving that they stand out in the sun for 6 hours because they just can't get enough, and they want the whole thing to be read to them. When it finally gets through the armor, people are crying, they get their faces on the ground, grieved now that they understand what they've been getting wrong, but also they're being encouraged to go and get it right. So there's clearly that element, but also there's an element of commemoration to all of this, a moment of saying, look at where we've been, because our narrative is tied to all of this law of God and character of God stuff. These two things are interwoven. And so I think this is an event that is really accomplishing both of those things. And there is this, what do I even call it? An emotional outpouring that happens when you get the commemoration thing right. There's also an emotional outpouring that happens when you get confession right, when you clear up a relationship with somebody that you screwed up and you acknowledge, I did this on purpose. I made these mistakes. I hurt you. I'm sorry. Here's what needs to change. Both of those things are formative, life-changing, very significant events in the rhythms of a lifetime, and they're both happening at once in Nehemiah chapter 8. And so what we get after this 6-hour reading of the law occurs through the first 8 verses of Nehemiah, what we get in chapter 9 is this emotional outpouring that I'm talking about. And we get a look at Nehemiah in a fresh light in a way that we haven't seen him before. Let me read a little bit of this to you. We're going to read Nehemiah 8, 9 through 12. All right, here we go. Then Nehemiah the governor, Ezra the priest and scribe, and the Levites who were instructing the people said to them all, "This day is sacred to the Lord your God. Don't mourn or weep." For all the people had been weeping as they listened to the words of the law. So you can kind of imagine the scene. It's almost like there's a diminishing return happening. The more law we read, the more people are doing the surrender cobra, 2 hands on top of their head. What have I done? Realization thing. And as that spreads through the crowd and more people get to whatever part of the law is particularly reflective of what they've gotten wrong, they have that moment of shock and eye-opening awareness. They have this overwhelming sense of guilt, of regret for what they got wrong. Their hearts are broken over this. Like one at a time, you can almost see this sweeping over the crowd, and the emotion of it all is overtaking one person, then another person, then another person. And it's almost getting to the point where it's no longer productive to keep reading because people are really fixated on the part about what they got wrong and being challenged by it. But then in verse 10, Nehemiah says, "Go and enjoy choice food and sweet drinks and send some to those who have nothing prepared. This day is sacred to our Lord. Don't grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." And then the Levites chime in as well. The Levites calmed all the people, saying, "Be still, for this is a sacred day. Do not grieve." And the author of Nehemiah here really wants us to understand this wasn't just a passing thing where it's like, yeah, people were really sad. It was crazy. You should have been there. No, 3 different ways the leadership is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. You get it. We're good. We're ready to take the next steps here. Don't just fixate on the part where you're sad about what you got wrong. Also celebrate the fact that now your eyes are open to what you got wrong, and the will of you and your neighbors is there for us to make this change and to move forward in a good way and to celebrate and commemorate what has been accomplished in our story and what is being accomplished in our hearts. It's like the thing is hitting them so hard that it's exceeding any of the organizers' expectation, and they're almost having to pull back on the reins a little bit to keep this productive and to send people away with something productive to do with all of it. And I love this look that we get at Nehemiah right here. It's like the grumpy coach who you follow all season long, and he's yelling at his players, he's arguing with the refs, and he's having grumpy press conferences after wins and losses. And you're like, dang, that's got to be hard to live in that guy's brain and that guy's role. He's always so tough. But then you see that coach win a championship and relax a little bit for a minute and laugh and to celebrate and to commemorate and appreciate what's going on. It's kind of wild to see that side of him after all you've seen his business. And likewise, that's how I feel about Nehemiah. This dude is always on. He's got a sword in one hand and a trowel in another. He's organizing the rotations of people to get spears and shields to defend the wall. He doesn't take any nonsense or any guff from anybody. He's constantly got people giving him the equivalent of ancient world spam calls, trying to catfish him to go out in the desert and get murdered. He's constantly got to have his guard up. He's fending people off. He gives one sentence, Sam Elliott style, cowboy of the West, few words, kind of answers to all of these absurd requests or demands that he's getting from his enemies. His friends, or people who hold themselves out as being his friends, they turn out to be his enemies as well. And he handles it all, and he handles it all as a man of few words and all business. But this is the first time we see something different, where Nehemiah's like, guys, we did it. We built the thing. It was a real tough push, and I pushed you really, really hard. And also, it was tough hearing all those words of the law. That was tough for me too. I've been going through this with you. A lot of paraphrasing here, but I think it's all fair. But hey, we got the walls built. And hey, we're hearing the law of the Lord, and it's touching our hearts, and our ears are open, and clearly his ears are open to our prayers as well. We shouldn't just grieve here, guys. Go get some sweet drinks and some choice food. And also make sure you include people who don't have anything prepared or might not have the resources to celebrate. Everybody needs to be a part of this celebration, guys. And it's like there's something about the coach, the dude who's been the hardest driver in the whole thing, coming in and raising his hands on this platform and saying this, that would have more authority socially than anybody else in the environment possibly could have had. And Nehemiah, once again, he's always leading by example, right? Because remember back here, a couple chapters, end of 5, I think, he was also sharing all of the resources, the per diem that he was getting for his title as temporary governor of Judea, of Jerusalem. He's not hoarding that. He's sharing it with everybody else. So yeah, good job, Nehemiah. Lead by example. Tell other people to do the same. Also, his instruction to go and make sure to share your choice food and sweet drinks with people who don't have much. That's in keeping with his campaign for economic justice in the first half of chapter 5. As you know, I really respect Nehemiah, and it's fun to see him in a different light, in a different moment, in a different mood, understanding that the tough guy leadership thing, it's not what's needed here. Showing the more tender side of his leadership, the more nurturing side of his leadership is what is needed. But even here, he's giving great counsel to the people in terms of economic justice and having their heads screwed on straight about what's actually going on. Next time around, we're going to look at this festival, this celebration that everybody embarks on upon hearing the instructions of Nehemiah and the Levites as their mourning turns to celebration. Thank you again to everybody who's checked out the new YouTube channel. The new YouTube channel, once again, for those of you who don't know, is just this. It's what we're doing here, but in a YouTube form. There's no video of me talking into a mic or anything like that. There's a little bit of visual stuff going on, but basically the podcast just now appears on YouTube as well, but it's not on my normal YouTube channel, the Matt Whitman YouTube channel. It's on a new one, the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast YouTube channel. Your subscription there is a huge help for getting that off the ground since we're starting from more or less zero over there. So thank you a ton for that. I really appreciate the help. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.